Good
Ah,
morning.
it's so good to see you, my friend. So good to see you. Always
Oh, it's
refreshing.
good to be back. Good to be back. I'm sorry I've been out for a couple weeks. Just challenges in life, and then last week was the other show. But no, it is good to be back now.
You don't have to elaborate, but what I love is I come in here after, especially on Fridays. And that's when you and I are here. Fridays, by the time I get here, I've already been talking for an hour and a half. I do the Friday morning fiasco with Doug
Mhm.
Tenaple
Yeah,
and Q. He's less frequent. He wasn't there this morning, but Q is one of the regulars there as well. But we go on that for sometimes 40 to 55 minutes, and
right.
Doug, I let Doug do most of the talking, but I have to engage and I have to be on my toes, certainly with him. And then we do Bible every morning, which I love, and it's listening to the Bible. And then it's just like one of my favorite things I do in my life is spending that time. So I get to come in here, and here I am babbling already for the first 2 minutes. But I get to listen to you. I get to let you kind of give your give me your peace of mind. What are we talking about today? Do you know? Have you decided, or what are we talking about?
Well, as we all know, there's a certain person standing trial for a crime that he didn't commit. You know, um, that's how this all got started. But then I started thinking, it's like that's us, like all the time. We stand trials throughout our whole life, whether that's a job interview or whether that's an actual courtroom trial. Trials are put in front of us and we have to endure them. And so, me personally, I went through my own trial this week. I stood trial before seven uniformed officers for my
Mm.
oral board interview uh, for the job I'm applying for. And so it was nerve wracking. It was good. It was tough, but it's tough for a reason. And so later today, I'll be finding out if I make it to the next stage
Oh,
or if God has other
you're a
plans for
bundle
me.
of nerves. You're like a bundle of nerves right now, right? Huh? Just kind of
Honestly,
anxiety.
honestly, I was before the interview,
Now
but
it's out
now
of your
that's
hands.
done,
Now it's out of your hands. Yeah, yeah.
it's in God's hands now,
Mm.
you know? And so, like I said, if it doesn't work out, then it's not God's plan for me. Then I'll go another route. Um, but the thing is, before the interview, I had everything in my head. And then when it started, the lead captain said, "Don't tell us what you think we want to hear. Tell us what you honestly think. Give us your authentic self." And that's the connection to what we're talking about today. Because here's the thing, regardless of how many trials you stand in your life, the one trial that matters, the only trial that truly matters for who you are in your soul is at the end. When you pass from this world and you stand before God, you know, how will you stand that trial? Will
The
God say, "Depart from me, I never knew you"? Or will he say, "Well done, good and faithful servant"? That's it.
the great white throne judgment, right? That's a trial,
Mhm.
right? You're standing before a throne. It's a judgment, and I'm gonna agree, but add a perspective. You say, and it's true. At the end, when we die, there's no more chances, right? There's no more chances. It is
Mhm.
appointed to man once to die, and then the judgment. And that's Hebrews, somewhere in Hebrews 9:27. I think I used to have
Mhm.
that memorized, but there's appointed to man once to die, or maybe it's four. Anyway, and then to face the judgment. However, the actual judgment already happened,
Mhm.
right? The price paid, right?
Mhm.
So, and if you have made the decision to follow Christ, that's actually when it happened, right? When you accept Christ, you've been judged. Your sins have been judged, right? It's this
Mhm.
eternal. It's the two dimensions of time. There's the linear time that we live within, and there's the eternity where we have been judged and found righteous and pure and perfect in Christ. our federal head who did it for us. And so the great white throne judgment, we tend to think it's this thing coming at the end, but it's already happened. And when you accept Christ, you have been judged at that judgment throne. And we tend to think it's a works mentality, and I got to do this and I got to do that. Even when you still sin, it's already been forgiven if you're in Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And so even like bringing it back to your scenario, it's like they may have already made the decision, right? Maybe they made the decision before. Well, I probably didn't make the decision before you stood before them, but you stood before them. How you said seven guys? How many? 9?
Oh yeah, seven.
And so I don't know what their process is. Maybe they all looked at your paperwork ahead of time. Maybe only one of them looked at your paperwork ahead of time. Maybe only one of them knew anything about you, and the rest of them are there as a clean blank slate just to get an impression of you. Maybe that was their first impression. And then after you were done, I think each of them in their hearts had made a decision. You don't know. You still don't know.
Right.
So you're in that limbo, not knowing. But you have the right attitude. And I like that when I said you must be a bundle of nerves, and I kind of wanted to take it back right away because I know exactly what you're talking about. You're only a bundle of nerves when you have anything to do with it, right? When it's
right.
Prior to meeting with them, it's prior to talking to them, and then it's out of your hands. And I when we came in this morning, that was even before you sending it, that was kind of on my mind to talk about that as we are not responsible for the things that happen to us, right? Being falsely accused or whatever.
Right.
We are not responsible for things that happen to us, but we are responsible for how we respond, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
And that's a connection to the next point. You're absolutely right. We already are chosen. We've already been judged. Okay. We already chosen to believe and follow Christ. But keep in mind, the following Christ, walking with Christ every day, that's the day-to-day grind. And I don't mean grind as a bad word. I mean grind as a good word. It's the day-to-day going up the stream, going against the current, going through the challenging way. That's the daily walk. And your choices on that walk do have an impact. You can choose to walk and be more like Christ every day. Now, you will stumble, you will fall, but you're still choosing to keep going down that path. Sadly, I've known people in my life who did accept Christ, but then walked away. They went a different path. They believed in other ideologies, other viewpoints, and they just went towards that direction and abandoned Christ. And so the trials that we stand throughout our life, they're not going to stop. No matter, even if you aren't a follower of Christ, you're still going to go through trials. You're going to stand before whoever it may be. But the difference is that if you are a follower of Christ, if you try to be more like Christ every single day towards that ultimate goal of meeting his Father, those trials at the end of the day might have some initial feelings. You might have initial pain and heartache. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, if you're walking more like Christ, then you're doing the right thing. And going back to that verse that Christ taught, if you follow me, you will be persecuted. They hated me first before they hated you. And so,
it says rejoice, rejoice when people say all kinds of horrible things about you in my name's sake. Rejoice. It's like,
embrace that.
may not feel good when it's happening, but it's evidence that you are in the center of God's will. Thanks, God.
Thanks. He's like, you're welcome.
Thanks. You want me to be more like you, I guess. Oh, you endured the cross. Oh, this ain't nothing, right?
Right.
I mean, that's why it's so. It's so brilliant.
And in relation to what's going on currently with 45 standing trial for a crime that he didn't commit, everything that is going on with that is an absolute kangaroo court. It's an absolute joke because, number one, as president, he had the complete legal authority to declassify anything he wanted. Number
Right.
one.
Hold on.
Sorry.
It's not that it's a crime that he didn't commit. It's a crime that he couldn't possibly commit. Right? It's in a category, like it's a category of crime. It's a category of crime that doesn't apply to the executive of the the executive office. It's a category.
Right.
Like he can't, like he's the one who he embodies what it means to classify, right? He's what it means to the office of the president of the United States is the final say on classification of documents. Period. So it's by design a crime he could never commit.
And the president has that right, not the vice president, just the president. That's a big factor. But, of course, the current potato in chief, he's not held accountable for any of his actions. No, of course not. No. Just the one person who single-handedly, just by his name alone, has begun to show the swamp for what it is. Oh, and by the way, his poll numbers are skyrocketing too. So
I was saying this in another. I think it was on Wednesday. I was talking. Yeah, it was William Archibald and I were doing this, and it's the Chinese finger trap thing.
Oh right? Yeah,
like you pull and you pull and you pull. And it gets tighter and tighter and tighter, right? You do a certain thing that you think is going to have an effect. You think pulling your finger is going to get you out of the trap, and they pull it Trump and they pull it Trump and it gets tighter and tighter and tighter around. They don't get it. They do not understand that Trump is the embodiment of the Chinese finger trap. Is it ethnically insensitive? Did that thing?
China.
Why do you say the virus? Oh, I better be careful what I say. Ooh, I was about to say something. This is YouTube. China.
Yeah.
But here's the crazy thing. Right back here, I got two of my 3 kids. They're half cool. Chinese, so I can do that, right? My wife is really? Chinese. I my wife is 100% Chinese. She's first generation. I go to family gatherings on that side of the family, and there's 50 Chinese people and me, right? So anybody might think I'm racist for saying the phrase Chinese finger trap. Is like whatever.
What's her dialect? Mandarin or Cantonese?
Cantonese. She speaks Cantonese.
Okay.
Her mom speaks both. Her dad spoke. He passed away. Cantonese, and she's not like fluent, but she is conversationally fluent.
Yeah.
Cantonese.
She's American. The food on her side is amazing.
Pardon?
I bet the food on her side of the family is amazing.
Oh yeah, at the family gatherings, people bring pizza and fried chicken.
Oh, okay.
Pizza and there's plenty of Chinese food as well. Yes.
Well, that's funny. My wife is adopted, and so my wife's dad is like pure French Cajun. Her mom's Mexican, so their food's amazing. Mexican, it's so good.
So we're off topic, but I don't care. We can talk about whatever we want. Mexican food. I speak Spanish. I was a missionary in Mexico again. So anybody that thinks me saying the phrase Mexican food is racist, like I speak Spanish. Mexican food is in my top 3 all-time foods. But Cajun food. Oh, I remember I was 15 years old. My uncle took me on a road trip. Well, I was moving from California to Kentucky, and we went through Louisiana. First time I ever had red beans and rice, jambalaya. Oh, it was just like, what? Yeah, where has this food been all my life? Yeah. So you're right. You get some good food.
In the summer of 2021, I went down to New Orleans for the first time to see my wife's New Orleans side of the family. And oh my gosh, it was amazing. It's a wonderful city. It's a wretched hive of scum and villainy. And I say that as a compliment. It's such a unique city.
Recognize it for what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. But the food, oh my gosh, the food is so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Have you been to Café du Monde? Have you had a beignet?
Yes.
Of course. I didn't know it. That was much later in my life that I've discovered what a beignet was. I'm like, oh, this is amazing.
An actual real beignet, not the garbage that you see anywhere else. No, like,
it can only be made there for some reason. Like
the climate fresh with a mountain of powdered sugar.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Okay, again, we'll get back to topic, but you're
Hey,
getting me off on food. I think people like food. This is a thing that I didn't realize, but it seems to be true. Like with the beignet, it's the literally the climate where it's made, something about it. You can only make it that way in that place, right? You can
mm,
box it up, you can box it
sure.
up and mass produce it and send it, but it's just not exactly the same as in
Right.
the similar thing with San Francisco sourdough French bread.
Oh,
When I was young, I lived in the Bay Area, and like I've had sourdough bread wherever before, but there's something about sourdough bread made in San Francisco, and that's a unique climate there, and something about the climate. I don't know.
right.
They ship it fresh all around the world because it can only be made that way there.
Hmm. Hmm.
Beignet, yes, beignet. Somebody's asking in the comments, what is it? Beignet. It's a little like donut. It's not a donut, but it's a pastry like kind of like donut material.
Yeah.
It's with powdered sugar.
It's basically fried bread drenched in
Yeah,
powdered sugar. Nothing
deep
nothing in
fried
it. Nothing
bread.
fancy. That's it. Yeah.
It's like little square donut holes, or not little. They can be like this big. But
Yeah.
all right. So getting back, I want to talk specifically about the Trump's. So I didn't read it, but on Breitbart, one of the news sources, like I replaced Fox with Breitbart recently
Mm,
because I just like now I'm not going to ever listen or watch or read any Fox
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But so I swapped out Breitbart and I just look at headlines. And Ann Coulter, the headline of her article, she was like, they have him dead to rights, but it's too late, something like that. The idea was that Trump really does have, some documents that he shouldn't have had or something like that, but because of the wolf, the crying wolf, nobody cares anymore, right? That was the gist of what she was talking
Right.
about. Like
Right.
he really did do something wrong this time, but it doesn't matter because it's too late. They've been, and I'm like, okay, so what she's saying is he had documents with some of our nuclear secrets and some of the stuff that shouldn't get out there and it wasn't secured and blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, but that doesn't mean they have him dead to rights because still he can declassify anything. And I think it's better that some of this stuff is out in the open. I mean, it's
Well,
better. Like we classify too many documents. I think
yeah.
some of this stuff needs to be out there. But even so, no matter how secretive and potentially dangerous to our nation, he still has the ability to declassify anything. It doesn't matter what those documents are.
Well,
So
make
I
what makes it
disagree with Ann Coulter in that regard.
what makes it such a problem is because he doesn't play the game.
Yeah.
He hasn't played the political game that every other president has played. He refuses to do that. That's why everyone in the system is so mad at him because he refuses to play by the rules. And if you want to talk about holding him accountable, the word accountability is a joke. Let's just be honest. It's an absolute joke because nobody in the current administration is being held accountable for their crimes. The House is starting that process, thank goodness. But again, the American people are not going to be satisfied until they see people in prison. That's it. So, I mean, I don't mean to be a negative Nancy, but until the people in this administration are held for their blatant crimes, the American people are seeing that. And that's why Trump is getting higher and higher approval ratings because he's refusing to play by their rules. He's refusing to do things the political way.
Yeah.
He's doing things the right way. And so people just don't like that.
And back to the Chinese finger trap analogy, like this is the way we're supposed to, like they have a modus operandi, like this is
Mm,
how you're supposed to impeach a president, or this is how you're supposed to unseat your political opposition,
right,
and it
right.
just backfires. It's like, and I hesitate to say this, but I shouldn't hesitate to say this. God gave us Trump, right? It was God just dropped this rock smash in the middle of this glass veneer, right?
Mm,
Like there's this veneer that our elites have put up that they've hidden behind, and they put on a good face, and everything's under control, and your government has your best interest in mind, and that's all full BS. I mean, Steve Turley a couple weeks ago was talking about, and I know you're a huge Steve Turley fan. He's
Mhm.
talking about how an analysis was done, or a paper or research was done on uh, issues that the American people care about. Like when the
Mhm.
polls are done, the issues that the
Mhm.
American people care about that are popular with the American people, but the issues that the elites want. In every case, the elites get their way. Right?
Mhm.
In every case, whatever these issues are, no matter what the populace wants, the elites figure out a way to pass these laws and pass these things. And it's like, oh, they do not care what the people think. They do not care at all. They have their self-interest. And
Mhm.
it shows, the
Mhm.
property values around Washington, D.C. It's the most expensive place to live on the planet.
Mhm.
Why? Because all the money just kind of stays there.
Right.
They just
Right.
pad their pockets. Like, yeah, I'll sign on to this bill. How much am I getting? Oh, sure, I'll sign this. How much do I get? Oh, how
Right.
my constituents? Forget them. How much do I get? Yeah.
I
And
got into this big old debate one time. I forgot what his name was. This is before my cruise. This is a while ago. But I had this radical idea. Now, hear me out. Radical idea is not just term limits, not just that, but if you are serving in Congress, whether it's the House or the Senate, you will live in pre-built houses, pre-built for congressional workers. Just
oh,
like in the military. If you're in the military, if you live on base, you live in pre-built housing on the base. All the houses are exactly the same. Okay. If you want to do some social gathering, do it at a certain place that's not your house. Okay. My point is, if you are a government worker, you get the same. Everyone gets the exact same house. That's the sacrifice you have to be willing to make because you are serving something bigger than yourself.
and
Okay.
there should be the congressional grocery store, and the congressional, like, you
Right.
have your rations, you have your
The
rations,
Congressional Transportation Service,
right?
just like the military.
I
It's just like the military.
I absolutely agree with that notion, right? That our public servants, right?
Mhm.
Servants,
Yeah.
right? They are our representatives. They literally are us,
They are
right?
government property paid for by
Within
us.
right within the Christendom, there's the notion that Adam was our first federal head. That's why we have all sinned. Right?
Mhm.
Adam represented us perfectly. He did what we would have done. He is our federal head. That's why all have sinned, because Adam did it, and he was our representative, and he absolutely did what we would have done. And so he was our first federal head, and then Jesus came as our next federal head, so that I have been crucified with Christ, right? I was buried with him. I was resurrected with him. I am seated with him. So federal head, he is our representative. We didn't elect him, but that's
Mhm.
where the analogy breaks down. But our representatives in the government are us.
Right.
That's us. That's what it's supposed to be. That's us, because we can't. We have our jobs, we have our lives, but we represent us.
And
They
on top
represent.
of all that, if you live on base housing in the military, there are no bills, there are no utilities, there is no rent. Okay. You're
Right.
provided all the basic needs. You still get an income. Yeah, that's fine. But you get the basic needs. Okay. That's the price you pay for becoming government property. All right. And then you're not going to be allowed to purchase other property. You're not going to be allowed to do anything else. Just your job of serving the people.
It used to be
That's my own belief.
my understanding. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Constitution vet, but it used to be kind of an inconvenience to be a representative, because you'd have to travel by
Yeah.
horseback all the way to Washington, D.C. You'd
Well,
have
it
to
wasn't
leave
their
your
full time
home.
job.
You'd have to leave your home and your job and your family and your farm and all this to get over there, to just, like, all right, let's talk about
Right.
these things we're going to talk about, so I can get back home.
The original
Now it's
founding
a
fathers
career.
had other things going on in their lives.
Mm.
Being a congressional senator representative was not a full time job. It didn't become full time until much later. But even if it is full time, that's fine. But here's the thing there has to be sacrifice. Currently, if I get voted to the House of Representatives, I serve there for 2 years, but then I get all these extra perks that have nothing to do with my job. If I get elected as a senator, that's 6 years of doing that job. Okay, but I'm not saying it's a bad position. What I'm saying is there needs to be some sort of sacrifice.
Yeah, you're taking a hit. I mean, that's why, getting back to our topic, Trump is truly one of the first men of the people that we've had as president in some time, not a
Yeah.
career politician. His businesses took a hit, right? Like that ridiculous narrative, like he just did it so he can line his pockets and he can enrich the Trump brand. And it's like, wait a minute. Every hotel room, I think the study was done, every hotel room in a Trump hotel, save one, there was one, there was an exception, but every room rate in every Trump hotel dropped when he became president. He lost value.
And every
Overall,
time he's
like,
in trial, that hurts his brand. Of
yeah.
course it does. But you know what? He chose that, knowing full well that he might have well been one of the few people in the world who could actually pull this off and wake people up. And he was victorious in that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the irony is a billionaire man of the people, but he was he was everybody who worked under him. I shouldn't say everybody. That's a hasty generalization, but
yeah.
You know, the testimonies are like he would show up at the job site and talk to anybody, everybody, average person. You know, when you're a chief executive, that's a sacrifice to take your time out to do that.
That's your
And
job.
he was like, I know how to like clean out the fat from a business. The United States of America has some fat. And one of the things, we're running out of time, but one of the things that just stands out to me that he implemented that was pure genius that had, and I think it's the reason the economy got stronger and bigger than ever in history, is I don't know if it's executive order, somehow he passed this resolution or something that for every new regulation proposed, you had to eliminate or undo 2. For every one new regulation,
Right.
he had to remove at
Right.
least 2. But the
Right.
ratio ended up being 1 to like 23, right? So it was a cleaning out of these ossified regulations that are in the system. For every new, it ended up being people going through all of these regulations. This is obsolete. That's unnecessary. This replaces that. And so it ended up it was like a cleaning of this bureaucracy. And if and when he gets back in, I think it'll be that times 1,000. I think there will be the change and the wrecking ball to come in and renovate and restore things the way they were originally intended. Well, you know, we'll see a new America practically completely, but we'll see what happens.
Absolutely.
I hesitate to make a prediction. It's either going to be Donald Trump or some Gavin Newsom, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden. I don't know.
It's out of our hands.
Exactly. Yeah. When we think our vote, geez, I don't know. I got in trouble in Sweet Home Maricopa for thinking that their policy changed. Like I got a strike down for 2 weeks on Sweet Home Maricopa because they changed the policy. We can now say that 2020 there was fraud. It's like, so I did a whole, a 5-minute video on that, and boom, strike 2. What? So gotta be careful.
Yeah. Well, it's out of our hands because here's the thing: God's in control. He's in charge, and that's the joy.
Yes, and that is the most important thing. Like, and I said this to in Friday Morning Fiasco with Doug this morning. That I said when they removed Tucker from Fox, that opened up a window in my, because I would watch Tucker every night because that that's straight to the heart of the most important issues. And now I'm like, there's no Tucker. I'm going to watch more theology and take in more preaching and teaching. And so I've been binging on a bunch of really good teaching. And it's like, oh, things are better, right? It's like, oh, God is in control. This is what's going on. This is above everything else. And okay. Nothing to worry about.
Right.
He's in control, and I am, serving him and looking forward to the well done, good and faithful servant. We're out of time.
Absolutely.
Love you, Ben. Good to see you, my friend.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.